is a convicted felon. I'll say again to those who go, oh my goodness, how could you make light of such a serious subject? It is a serious subject that now we have a former president convicted felon. It is a serious subject that Trump has engaged in so much criminal wrongdoing in the case of these cases, and then alleged criminal wrongdoing in all the other ones. And that's a serious thing. We can celebrate the accountability. That's the light in the darkness, the accountability for the wrongdoing. Absolutely something we can celebrate. And even if emotionally it helps us, we want to mock, we can mock. Because Trump is inflicting himself onto us. The only recourse we have is celebrating in the rare moment, again, of accountability. Here is a Fox News host making a claim so absurd that, well, I don't know, it makes me mad, okay? That's the only way I can think of finishing that sentence.
On that insulin thing, I seem to remember that back in May of 2020, Centers for Medicare and Medicaid said that President Trump had signed an executive order to cap the price of insulin for Medicare recipients at $35. Now, maybe I'm misremembering that, but I think it kind of already happened.
The messaging is interesting.
So the other Fox host has no clue, but so far from the truth being that insulin costs were already capped under President at the time, Donald Trump, instead of President Joe Biden, which is when they've actually been capped. That was a provision of the Inflation Reduction Act, specifically for Medicare recipients. And Americans, to all of the millions of Americans who this impacts, just know that all Americans were going to have their insulin costs capped at $35 out of pocket per month. Do you know who stopped that? Republicans. So they were able to get the Medicare specifically for specific reasons. Logistical, what affects the budget, Medicare being more under the purview of this legislation than the broader scope of the capping for everyone. But Democrats successfully got Medicare insulin cost cap, but Republicans were able to remove the cap for all Americans. So just remember that. You could have cheaper prescription drug costs if it weren't for Republicans, and that applies to a bunch of different issues where they've successfully, without it getting that much press attention, have prevented real progress on issues that a lot of Americans, even conservatives, care a lot about. Now, before getting to Mark Levin having his meltdown, media reports half of voters believe Donald Trump should end his presidential campaign after his guilty verdict in his Manhattan hush money trial. And you have this ABC News Ipsos poll released Sunday with 49% of Americans thinking Trump should suspend his campaign after he's found guilty of more than 30 felony counts. And this is huge. Among independents, 52% believe that Trump's conviction was proper and that he should end his campaign. And less than 20% of Republicans say the same. Let's see here. 50% believe Trump's guilty verdict was correct, while 27% say it was not, and 23% are not sure. So a much smaller percent, half essentially, say it wasn't correct than those who say it was correct, and then you have a bunch of people saying they don't know. So the idea that all of America is just absolutely horrified by this is not accurate. You actually have a pretty small percentage, only a fourth of the country, saying that they know this to be an incorrect verdict, and that pushes back against nicely the Fox News and Donald Trump narrative. Now, speaking of Fox News again, there's a show that happens, I think on Sundays, called Life, Liberty, and Levin. And it's with Mark Levin. And he does this thing where he shouts at the camera like every single week, at least in the clips that I've seen. Maybe it's the selection bias there, but he's constantly shouting and so angry about different things. Obviously, today, or yesterday, his issue is with the Trump verdict. And know that no matter how confident or passionate or angry he postures, what he's saying becomes no more rational. Let's go.
Within 11 states, a mere dead letter. And therein, ladies and gentlemen, is the bottom line. Why do I want this case to get before the Supreme Court? So they have the opportunity, whether they take it or not.
Oh, this is the other thing, if you're not familiar. Mark Levin always has a bunch of papers. Now, I don't know why, with all the love in the world to my colleagues, why for paper props on this desk we got little miniature ones, but we did. So I can't do exactly the same thing he was doing, but we have these little baby papers. I hate Cole laughing. But he does that a lot. So I think it's supposed to indicate that this is the real deal, right? He has papers. He printed out Trump's indictments and would have them stapled and would slap them down. How could he be lying if he has big, thick stacks of papers that he can throw down on his desk? Sheesh.
To give us our due process clause back. To give us our equal protection clause back. It's not up to a prosecutor and a judge, a rogue prosecutor and a rogue judge, for that matter, to destroy and nullify the due process clause of the 5th and 14th Amendment.
Mark, we're right here. We're right here. Shh. It's all right.
Or the equal protection clause of the 5th and 14th Amendment. And we have the same Democrat Party that rejected the Constitution, the same Democrat Party that fought the Due Process Clause, that fought the Equal Protection Clause, the same Democrat Party that after the Civil War, despite the 5th Amendment, despite the Civil War Amendment, the 14th Amendment, still supported segregation, still supported eugenics, still supported and backed Jim Crow. And nobody's a better figure, illustration of that, than Joe Biden. Now they do it for different reasons, and they do it in a different way.
By the way, I do love, and by love I mean hate, how people, to make an argument, pretend like they're not aware of the Republican Democratic Party political realignment that happened and just include in their argument, as if it's really profound, the absence of that context. And we see it constantly, but Levin's doing it here.
Hey, but it doesn't change who they are and what they are. They hate the Constitution as they must, as they adopt an increasingly aggressive Marxist ideology. And this party is an autocratic party. It doesn't care how it gets power. What was done to Donald Trump in that courtroom, in addition to everything you heard, is an attempt to nullify the federal Constitution, due process, equal protection. That's what took place. The Democrat Party is the new Confederacy. That's right. It was the old Confederacy, now it's the new Confederacy. Reverse federalism, where a judge and a prosecutor steal the jurisdictional power of the federal government and all.
No, false. Happened in their state. They have jurisdiction over their state. But wow, Mark. I haven't checked in on him in a while. Not doing well. And interesting, the projection. The Democratic Party hates the Constitution because Trump was held accountable legally and had exactly what the Constitution demands. He had his due process. He had his day in court, put up his defense. He had his jury of his peers, and he lost. So that's just, it happens sometimes. No, brutal. But he did get his constitutional rights in that situation. But while advocating that it's the Democrats, the new Confederacy, even though, Mark, I want you to go up on any beach. When I would vacation at Texas beaches, growing up in Texas, there would always be Confederate flags out at the beach parties. Not at all of them, obviously, but you would see Confederate flags here and there. Very strange. And that's a phenomenon in much of the South. There's just Confederate flags in certain places. It's just beyond belief. And Mark Levin, I want you, just as a little survey, to go walk up to people and ask them, if you were to vote, would you vote for the Republican or Democratic candidate? See who the Confederate flag holders are supporting. But he's saying the Democratic Party, new Confederacy for Trump somehow. And that's why they hate the Constitution. While he's supporting the guy and he's yelling on behalf of the guy that called for the termination of the Constitution. They'll deny it. We looked at a clip of Gutfeld going, I don't think that happened. A massive fraud of this type magnitude allows for the termination of all rules, regulations, and articles, even those found in the Constitution. It's what Trump wrote, and it's still up, and I've provided the link to you all many times, Honest for Social platform. He said that because the election was stolen, that type of fraud, lie, but it allows for the termination of the Constitution in service of that. So you can't ever bring up the Constitution again if you're a Trump person. I'm serious. I know that sounds pretty simple, but if you have a guy that you support and he says, do away with the Constitution, then turns around without deleting that post and posts a new post that says I never said that, and both posts are still up, then that you can't say you're a constitutional anything, constitutional conservative, constitutional American, anything. That's not a part of your ideology. You like Trump more than you like the Constitution. And then also the projection of the Democratic Party is for autocracy. Again, look into the views and the plans of Trump for a second term and his attempt to block the peaceful transfer of power. Let me know what you thought of all those miscellaneous Fox News moments in the comments.
For those in the audience who might not know, so, sir, you are a congressman for 9 years. Conservative bona fides, I mean, impeccable. And yet, not strong enough to appeal to the Trump world that you were immune from the pressure and the penalties that they might place on you.
Well, Donald Trump's not a conservative.
Exactly. But now you're the rhino. You with, and you and I probably disagree on most things.
Absolutely everything.
Well done, sir. But what is the pressure like? You know, I see so many Republican stalwarts who are on the record as saying, this man is a con man. This man is not worthy of the highest office of the presidency. This man What is the mental process?
Well, it's really pretty simple. In order to get elected, you got to get 51% of the vote. And so there's this combination of wanting to do the right thing, so you run for office, and then you need to be popular in order to win. And the Republican Party now, a majority of Republican primary voters are MAGA supporters. And so you don't want to make the man mad who is really in control or strongly influencing the MAGA voters. So those folks are making a calculation. They want to stay in office.
What is in your mind, what's the percentage of that? How much of it is cynical calculation, and how much of it is people like yourself leave, and they are filled in by real ideologues who believe in that message? The message of, it's really whatever Trump wants, it's having nothing to do with conservatives.
I think that 100% of the folks who are running for office who recognize that if they're going to win a Republican primary, they need to become supporters.
Right. And that's what's happening. Was there discussion behind the scenes in Congress where people would say, I want this to end? Do they feel hostage to that?
I'm in both parties, honestly. In both parties, there is a real problem with folks who are at the head of the ticket.
Right.
Obviously, Dean Phillips felt that way on the left.
Sure. No, I was a big Phillips supporter. Really thought he was going to go all the way. Remind me again, who is Dean Phillips? Now, you've said, so you've watched this process play out for Donald Trump. Would you say it's fair that it literally drove you from Congress?
I would not win a primary the next election. Or if I won a primary, it would be because there were so many people who wanted to run against me that they stood.
And what was the crime that you committed? Because your positions hadn't changed, so tell me the crime you committed.
So, I don't know that it's a crime, now that we're talking about murder or something like this. Just trying to stay away from whatever crime
You were not under oath in any way.
Whatever crime I committed, the statute of limitations probably hasn't run, so I want to make sure my goal in leaving Congress was to leave undefeated and unindicted, and I have accomplished that goal. So I'm very happy about
You got to aim higher next time.
Yeah.
You got to. You do have a frustration and complaints about the process of this Donald Trump trial. And you call it shameful precedent. Shameful precedent. Is that correct? A shameful precedent.
I think it is a bad precedent. Okay. I was a prosecutor for 25 years.
Why do you think it's a bad precedent?
It is a bad precedent because Lady Justice, blindfold, scale, sword, the image of Lady Justice.
We went out in the 70s. I'm very familiar.
Okay. In this case, the blindfold came on. The blindfold is on because people shouldn't be targeted. And the system is flawed. I'll say that it doesn't happen. People shouldn't be targeted. charge them because they're white or black, man or woman, Republican, Democrat, rich or poor. The blindfold came off and Donald Trump was targeted.
Now, how was he? I'm curious how he was targeted.
So Cyrus Vance was the previous DA, declined this case. Alvin Bragg brought a case where the misdemeanor had the statute of limitations had expired. Found a felony to extend his statute of limitations and then brought the case. I found a felony, or there was there wasn't a felony for the previous district attorney.
I mean, many times district attorneys will say, I don't think the evidence gets to that standard, but another district attorney might come in and say, oh no, that's a felony. He's doing that in order to manipulate an election. That's a felony.
So this district attorney declined the case. Alvin Bragg declined the case and then brought the case. And there was significant political pressure to bring the case. And that's something that the justice system needs to be insulated from. And the federal system has done a fairly good job of being insulated. Right now, Hunter Biden, you've got a special counsel appointed on...
But Hunter Biden wouldn't be up against charges if he wasn't Hunter Biden. He just he wouldn't be facing charges.
We probably disagree about that. I think that hopefully Hunter Biden would...
You think Hunter Biden would be facing, rather than like a rehab stint or something along those lines, you think the attention on Hunter Biden would be occurring whether his name was Hunter Biden or not?
I prosecuted a lot of drug cases, some of them because drug dealers, drug users, drug addicts had purchased. Yes.
But doesn't that say more about this country's view on drug cases and how we prosecute them and how we excuse white-collar crime? We basically have a bargain with white-collar crime where we say, how about you give us like 5% of it and everything will be fine? Like, isn't that not speak to political targeting, but the way that we diminish white-collar crime? I mean, 2008, the financial system collapsed and one dude went for like 3 months. I mean, Martha Stewart did a lot of stuff.
Which was a white-collar crime. But yeah, I think that I was a white-collar prosecutor for much of my 25 years. Absolutely. A black kid walks into a bank, robs a bank, 20 years. A white guy at a bank steals millions of dollars compared to $1,200. Gets off with probation or goes to a camp in Florida for a few weeks. Absolutely. And Congress is saying,
Couldn't you look at this as actually not a shameful president, but an unbelievably positive step in sending a message that the low level of corruption that seems to be the center of our political life is unacceptable? I didn't think that was good.
oh, no. You all get bonus.
Yes, exactly.
So it is a dangerous precedent in my mind because when we start charging former presidents, and I'm not saying, look, I think when Donald Trump did Atlantic City, casinos and other things, there was fraud and then maybe went beyond civil. There are plenty of things that we look at and say that's true. I think
Let's be clear. Donald Trump didn't come into office and post by one of the most senior individuals in history. His first lawyer was Lloyd Cohen. You don't hire Lloyd Cohen and say to him, like, and I want to make sure everything's done on the up and up. Like, Lloyd Cohen, I think, was Donald Trump's lawyer, and Satan's. I think, and if I remember correctly, even Satan would say to him, like, take it down a notch, Roy. But dude,
did Satan pay his bills?
he did not pay his bills. But my point is, this is a continuation of the process. So the targeting aspect of it, a healthy country would have viewed what Donald Trump did from election day, January 6th, the way that he meticulously and relentlessly pursued all avenues to overturn a democratic election. That's what a healthy country would deal with. But a healthy country also looks at other what seem to be fraud. If you have a home office and you put it on your taxes and you don't really have a home office, that's a problem for you, is it not?
Yes.
Why aren't they say like it's just a bookkeeping error of $130,000? Donald Trump colluded with his lawyer and a publisher of a major tabloid to buy and bury stories
Not a crime.
that he would deem hurtful to his election, and then use the finances that he paid for those stories and put them down as not that. That is a crime, is it
No,
not?
he didn't put them down. He put them down in a ledger as not a payment for it. But so what would he? Well, you can falsify your own books. You just can't falsify your books when you submit them to the IRS.
Oh, so when he absented them, he said this is.
He said it was legal. It wasn't campaign expense.
I understand the point you're making. So here's where this takes us, I think. I don't believe Donald Trump is the sole threat to our democracy. I truly don't. I think he is a symptom of a dissatisfaction that people have with the democratic system, where if you have money and you're powerful, it's not a ledger, it's legal. It's not illegal. It's not for my election. I think they see that his description of our system is correct. The system is rigged. And people's dissatisfaction is what leads to Donald Trump being able to command that dissatisfaction. Where I would disagree with him is I don't think he wants to drain the swamp. I think he wants the deed to the swamp signed over to him so that he can turn America into just another subsidiary of the Trump administration. I don't know. So my question to you would be, why is it bad precedent to pursue that case legally? Donald Trump, if he pursued the election fraud cases through the courts, and they impaneled a grand jury, and then it went to a trial with a jury of peers, and they decided on it, that's not illegitimate. And why is this illegitimate? And by the way, that's my lawyer calling me right now. With a good, first of all, is that really your ringtone? Like, is your ringtone "Baby Go Nappy"? All right, sorry. Getting back to our democracy. Look, I just find all this high dudgeon really disingenuous. The prosecutor ran on getting Donald Trump. Well, he's the DA. He runs on weeding out corruption, right?
Can I answer that?
Please.
I was a prosecutor. Ran
25 years.
20, but I
White-collar
ran
crime.
three separate times. Okay. I ran on. We've got to combat violent crime. We've got to go after repeat offenders. Never ran on. I'm going to get that guy.
But you could run on, I'm getting white-collar corruption. Alvin Bragg didn't say, I'm going to get Trump. What he said was, I'm the most qualified. This guy has a record in New York, decades long, of corruption. And I think it's, look, if you were Dick Tracy and you wanted to be the thing, wouldn't you be like, I'm going to get Scarface or whoever one of the Dick Tracy guys, like, this was a guy pulling that. And the second point to that would be this. In 2016, what was one of the platforms that Donald Trump ran on? Let's get crooked Hillary.
Thank God he's not a prosecutor.
I understand, but do you get my point? The point is, this guy ran on Hillary is crooked and I'm going to put her in jail. And then with Biden, he said the Biden crime family is crooked and I'm going to put them in jail. And then a prosecutor in New York said, I have evidence you've committed a felony, so we're going to put you on trial. And he's like, what? How dare you, sir? What are we talking about? What is this? What are we dealing with? I'm about to go to jail, aren't I, sir?
Respectfully.
Please.
Apples and oranges. Because you've got someone in a political system, and how many people in America believe what a politician says?
Sir, no. Hey, tickets are free. I will throw you out of here, respectfully. We're having a conversation. This is not Rome.
A prosecutor walks into a courtroom and tells a lie, and that prosecutor loses a law license and probably goes to prison.
Exactly.
So the difference between Alvin Bragg saying, I am going after that person, and Donald Trump saying that person should go to prison is two different forums.
Who has the more power?
Was a candidate?
No, the president. And someone running for president. This is kind of a crazy argument you're making.
No. Let me finish. Bill Barr, great attorney general. Merrick Garland, great attorney general. Merrick Garland appoints a special counsel and then puts the report out that says that Joe Biden should not be prosecuted because he's a kind gentleman with a bad memory, something to that effect.
Right. That's not what he said, but okay.
Well, it's close.
What he said was he would present to the jury as a kind of gentleman, which means I don't think we can win this case because I think he's too sympathetic a figure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Very different.
I apologize. I'm not trying to slander.
Objection sustained. No, objection, what's the...
I don't know.
All right.
It's a long time ago.
But my point being that if a candidate says, I'm going to get this person, then that's all Alvin Bragg was at that time as a candidate. So why aren't you holding Donald Trump, who's running for president, to the same standard that you would hold Alvin Bragg? And not only that, when Donald Trump was president, he did impanel a special prosecutor to go after the Russian collusion hoax, that John Durham panel, and that was there to try and get charges against Hillary Clinton. You can't be mad at the Democrats for committing murder just because your team only committed attempted murder. Like, that just doesn't fly. They were successful in their prosecution as opposed to those other cases where you just tried to get her.
So Donald Trump never had the authority to request a search warrant, put handcuffs on somebody, prosecute somebody. That is always done by an independent Department of Justice.
Right.
On the other hand, Alvin Bragg ran for office to get that authority to do those very things. It's two separate situations.
Not solely, and also those things come with a process. He can't just go in there and go, arrest that guy. This isn't Navalny. This is a grand jury was impaneled of normal New Yorkers, not Alvin Bragg. And he presented his evidence. And they came back and said, yeah, there's a case here. So then they impaneled the jury. And then both sides got to choose.
You can indict a ham sandwich. That's what a grand jury is.
Okay, but generally you wouldn't convict a ham sandwich because at some point 12 New Yorkers would go, that's just a ham sandwich.
And we will see what an appeals court does. Look, you're putting me in an unenviable position of defending Donald Trump. I've spent a long time.
I'm putting you in a position of defending the process that he was put through. That process has standards. You said it yourself. An appeals court is going to look at this. There are many safeguards within our legal system, and he's getting the benefit of almost all of them in a way that poor New Yorkers will never get a sniff of.
Agreed both.
So he's getting dewier process than anybody has ever gotten. So I don't understand, just because you don't like the result. He doesn't like the result of the election. Our elections are a fraud and we're a third world country. He doesn't like the result of a criminal case. Our courts are a fraud. What would make him better? If they did what I wanted. No. That's not our system. No, that's a monarch.
I think what would make them better in his mind if they didn't convict him.
That's my point.
Yeah, but I don't think he wants justice in this country. I don't think he's standing up and saying we need justice. He's standing up and saying the election's stolen, so let's see if we can overturn the election in Congress. I didn't win in the courts, so let's go to Congress. I voted to certify those electors, by the way.
You and I, you walked out here, and you said to me, this is just 15 minutes ago. I promised I wouldn't do this. You said to me, I'll bet we don't agree on anything. And yet, sir, here we are. Agreeing. Detente. If we can do this, sir. How does this get repaired?
I retract my previous comments.
I will have the stenographer note those in there. How do we... My point in the first segment was the courts have been a really important stopgap. I think our courts are. There is a two-tiered system for people without access to get screwed. But I do think it's played an important role in holding up certain things in terms of corruption. I think the news media has has forgotten that that can be part of their role. Is that something that you think could bring a sense more of an established reality, an earned authority from the media that could create some parameters that we can all sort of agree on? Is that something that you think would be possible?
I appreciate your question. I'm no longer a defense attorney. Now I can go to. And so I think we went from Walter Cronkite and Dan Rather to entertainment. And I think the problem.
Why are you looking at me? I had nothing to do with this.
I think the problem right now is everybody gets their news sources in silos, and they just keep getting reinforced with certain ideas. I went to a neighbor's house the day after the 2020 election. Their flag was upside down.
You live next to the Alitos? That's crazy.
I knocked on the door and asked them, your flag's up. I thought they made a mistake.
Oh, gosh. But they were sending a message.
Oh,
yeah.
And it's a crazy mess. There were kids playing across the street.
You know what
there
else
was
I would
food in the
suggest?
refrigerator, gas in the tank. There was, what's the distress?
You thought it was a dystopian, like The Last of Us kind of, yeah, they were falling apart. I wonder, too, if the algorithm, has played a role. People can say, like, well, they're in their silos. But I think also the algorithms of social media.
Thank you. much.